and potentially some level of innovation going forward with their research or areas of interest. And so that started off last, as I mentioned, Thursday and Friday, and we've invited them to an event. The Iowa Innovation Council is coming this Thursday to meet with President Wilson at the new College of Pharmacy building. And so we're trying to include them as much as we can in some innovative and entrepreneurial commercialization related events that we're going to be partaking in. And it's an exclusive event where we only accept so many fellows at any given time. It's something that we think that if we can talk to new folks early in their careers to understand what it's like to navigate those waters, that there's a better opportunity for them to engage down the road. So this is a great opportunity to do the same here with you folks as you're starting your postdoctoral careers and this year. Couple things. So we are part of the Office of Innovation, recently branded within the university. And our Chief Innovation Officer is John Darcy. John's got history with the University of Iowa. He played basketball here back in the 80s. He left to go out to Silicon Valley eventually and was part of multiple startups. The most successful startup that he was a part of was called iRhythm. iRhythm came out of the Stanford Biodesign program. And so John is extremely well versed in that program and the concept of bringing commercialization and innovation around technology, specifically the medical device space. And we'll get into more of the areas that we support. But John's got a lot of experience and contacts in his network that we're able to bring to the University of Iowa and then enhance the services and the resources that we provide. And John actually sits under the president's office. So the Office of Innovation is directly under President Wilson's office here on campus. So I'm gonna give a little bit about myself. We jokingly said on Friday at one of our events, I was able to put all of my professional career on one slide. So my background is that I graduated from the University of Nebraska with an ag business degree, had this intention of going back to a family farm. That didn't work. There was some reasons I was not able to head back. And so eventually went back to pharmacy school at Iowa, graduated in 2006. While I was at Iowa, I had the opportunity to be employed by and be mentored by a number of small business owners, entrepreneurs, and innovators in this field of pharmacy. And so it really kind of spurred my interest in the area of commercializing what pharmacists were doing at that time, which was getting out from behind a dispensing role and doing more of a clinical role, getting paid for your clinical service. So that was my first introduction to how do I get reimbursed to do this? How do I create a model that allowed us to get paid for our services, do payroll, get people employed, that whole spectrum. And had an opportunity to work with a PI at the University of Iowa who was world-renowned in the space of physician-pharmacist collaboration. And when he applied for his last 2 R01 grants, he asked me to create a business model around that research question, which was, can pharmacists remotely located away from the health systems be able to provide a high level of clinical care? So it really was telehealth before telehealth was cool with the onset of COVID. So we got our first grant was funded, a 5-year R01 was funded in 2012. The second one was funded in 2014. So we've had back-to-back NIH grants that R01s that were helping to understand this model. And then in 2018, I signed the very first contract for a business we created called Centralized Healthcare Solutions. It was housed in the College of Pharmacy. The difference here was that this was not my business. It was the university's business. It was never my intention to make it my own. But the concept was still the same. We wanted to commercialize an idea that was coming out of research. It's extremely important to my PI and also important to NIH. NIH had just come down with a memorandum that said, you're more likely to get funded for an R01 grant if you can show a commercialization model or pathway within 5 years of completing the study. And we were able to do that. In fact, we had commercialized these two, commercialize this before our 5 years was even up. So it was really innovative in that space of taking research funded idea and getting it commercialized. In 2021, I started looking for other opportunities where I wanted to figure out ways to help other faculty and staff commercialize their ideas. And that's when a position with the Office of Innovation and UI Ventures opened up. So in February of this year, I took my new role as Assistant Director of UI Ventures and the UI Made program, which I'll share a little bit more with you about, as the next stage of my career. And it's been extremely beneficial for me to work with faculty and staff on campus to better understand how that pathway can work. I've been through it a little bit, and then learning from Mihaela, Sarah, and the folks at UIRF around IP, tech transfer, and how that integrates into the commercialization process. All right, so a little bit about UI Ventures. I'll give you our team. So Jordan Kaufman got her PhD from North Carolina State. She's a biomedical engineer. Jordan has a background in medical device where she has started her own company at one point. She is also married to a physician who has his own company in the medical device space. And so Jordan has a lot of experience around biodesign, medical device, and in the startup sphere. As branches down, I was added this year, and a big part of that reason was that we want to grow the team of UI Ventures to be able to provide more resources. So we're in the process of looking for a project manager to oversee our MADE program, and I'll talk to you about that here in a little bit as another resource that you have on campus. And then ultimately, we're recently funded by the Kauffman Foundation to provide a nurse innovators program across the state of Iowa. It will start at UIHC, and we are looking to hire a nurse, what we're calling right now a nurse liaison, but ultimately a nurse innovation assistant to help us promote innovation around the field of nursing. It'll start here, like I said, at UIHC in Iowa City, and then expand across the state of Iowa over the course of the next 12 months. We also then work with outside, what we call our EIRs, our experts in residency. Tim Bainey's a manufacturing engineer that we consult with. Mike Ryder is in the compliance and FDA space. And then John Casco is a sales engineer who's helping us put together a model to sell some of the products that we do through our MADE program. The folks on the bottom here are all of our students that we employ through the MADE and UI Ventures program. The majority of them are engineering students, with the exception of Julia Mindy, who's our College of Business intern, social media marketing coordinator. So a little bit of the highlights about Ventures. So UI Ventures is really here to support startups, faculty who wanted to create a startup. So a lot of times, and I'm sure Mihaela and Sarah will get into this, but just because you have IP around something doesn't mean that it's a good idea to have a startup. So there's licensing, and I'll let them get into that more. But for us, if we have a faculty who's really interested in moving this to a startup, first and foremost, as John Darcy would say, this is not a democracy on our side. Not everybody gets a vote. So if you have a concept, an idea that you want to create into a startup, you reach out to Ventures, we talk about it, we reach out to our network on the outside and bring in experts directly in the space you're interested in, and get a real in-depth understanding of whether or not a startup is a right idea. And if it's not, we'll tell you. If we don't think that your idea has the teeth to be a startup, we'll tell you that. If it's better suited in licensing or other pathways, we'll tell you that. So again, I need to get t-shirts made, but John always says it's not a democracy over here. We don't support everybody who wants a startup because it's our experience that if we bring in experts who give us the advice, we're going to follow that advice. So in FY22, the startups that we supported have raised upwards of $74 million in equity as part of their programs, as part of their startup companies. We have 24 companies that we currently support, and it's at all different levels. Some it's very intricate, where we talk to them weekly or bi-weekly or monthly, and others, they're out there pretty much doing their own thing and asking us if they need help. And I see we have some chat, so I'm just going to see. No, we're good. Okay, I want to make sure no one had questions. We also have innovation funds that I'm going to talk about that would be an area that some of you might be interested in going forward. So within UI Ventures, we have what are called GAP or innovation funds. where we have buckets of money where we can support different colleges and inventors upwards of $50,000 per fiscal year to take your startup to the next level. So it's got to be at a certain point already. But if it meets the criteria, then you could apply for this, have a year to use these non-diluted funds and try to grow your idea further into commercialization. So we currently support 6 colleges on campus with that program. A little bit of just some news we took from FY22 from companies that we work with, and please don't try to read all this. I just really wanted to get you the headlines. HC Bioscience is a company that came out of the College of Biomedical. They recently got that technology is protein repair. That came out with a faculty member here, and they recently raised $24 million. Viewpoint Molecular is in the oncology targeting space. They have not only signed, they're really expanding internationally. They recently hired a new CEO, and they have expanded into Australia and into Germany. Juggernaut is a company formed between a physician and an engineer over at the College of Engineering. And they are recently got some small SBIR grants. They've had multiple SBIR grants over the course of their time together. And so pretty cool to see that collaboration between medicine and engineering happening, which we're trying to enhance that because that's certainly makes sense to have those two industries collaborating more on campus. And then Ioto Motion recently announced that they had FDA approval for their robotic assisted surgical process. So that's pretty cool to get over that barrier. So again, just some ideas or examples of companies here out of Iowa, University of Iowa, that have had some success. Actually just saw a thing this morning, Mihaela and Sarah, I don't know if you saw that, but Digital Diagnostics just solidified and closed out their Seed B funding at a total of $75 million. So in FY22, Digital Diagnostics, which came out originally was called IDX for diabetic retinopathy screening that could be done remotely through AI supported programming. They're going gangbusters right now and just solidified round B funding of $75 million. And I didn't get that added because it was so new this week. Oh, I jumped on ahead. Real quick, I just wanted to go through where we're at with the different colleges and the innovation funds. So in FY22, we awarded $481,000 across campus to faculty innovators interested in commercializing an idea. We had 23 applications over the course of all those 6 different gap funds that we talked about. And as you see, medical devices is the strong suit of the University of Iowa. About 70% of the tech that comes out of Iowa comes out of med tech, biotech, medical device side. There is some software in there and some training. A lot of times these are young faculty who are looking to help enhance the education of future faculty and healthcare professionals. So we do get into a little bit on the training side. Also the College of Education, which is a college that we support, as you can see down here, more in that education and training spectrum. So College of Medicine, College of Engineering, College of Education, College of Dentistry, Nursing, and pharmacy is new to us this year. So in FY 2022, we did not fund anybody in pharmacy because we hadn't started yet. In 23, we did have 5 applicants and we did fund one of those faculty members with a total of, I believe, that she also got $50,000. Real quick, just wanted to show you some examples of GAP awards coming out of CCOM. As you can see, Dr. Leroy has been, he was able to get 2 different GAP funding because he's in 2 different projects. He's the positions that's in that Juggernaut company with Fatima Tour out of College of Engineering. And he was able to get 2 different GAP funds, ophthalmology, peds, and then gastroenterology. College of Engineering, we got a couple awards that came out last year. There's Dr. Tor, and then so those are in FY 2022. And then I wanted to share with you, this is a busy slide, and I kind of apologize, but I hope it helps understand the scope of what we do. from a support system perspective. And maybe I should have asked this question up front to engage everybody, and we could use the hand raises if you think about it. But I guess the question I would have to the folks on the call today, who even knew that there was an Office of Innovation at the University of Iowa and that there was a program, UI Ventures, that could help startups? So that's something that I'm interested in, because as we are working towards creating engagement, increasing our engagement, it would be interesting information to know. But this is all the companies and faculty that we are currently help support on the University of Iowa campus, or that have an Iowa connection. So not going to go through all of them, but if you see a big chunk of what we do is in that therapeutics and medical device space. That's predominantly where we're at in terms of the tech coming out of Iowa. Get a little bit into AI and diagnostics. And we actually do have some folks that are in the ag space, even though that we're not the ag college per se. And we're trying to really ramp up on the engineering side. And we think there's a great opportunity, excuse me, to partner with a College of Engineering, and having the new dean really focused on innovation and outside partnership. We think there's a great opportunity for us going forward. So again, everybody who's on here, I think there might be one or two that have since maybe folded the company or killed the idea. But these are all folks that are currently actively either pursuing a startup or have a startup in place, some higher levels than others. Something that we have not done a great job of over the course of the last few years is to make people aware of who we are. So again, I asked that rhetorical question earlier about who knew that we were even on the campus and what kind of services we provide. And that's a fault of ours that we recognize we need to do a better job of. And so we've created a social media presence to try to engage folks and help them understand the resources that are available here as we help people who are interested in the area of innovation and commercialization. So we do have recently started a LinkedIn page, which we were just talking this morning. We picked up 82 followers in 2.5 months, which is a great start for us. And so we're one of the reasons we hired our social media intern to help us assist in building our brand. And a big part of that was getting branded at the university level as the Office of Innovation, which was earlier this year. And so being able to do that hopefully gives us more clout as it comes to the work that we're trying to do. So as I mentioned, a big part of how we want to grow this is to engage with folks like yourself who has an interest. You don't have to have an idea or a company that you want to start right now, but who has an interest in commercialization in general. And what we've learned over the years is that if we can engage with you sooner in your career rather than later, the likelihood of you taking that idea to the next step of commercialization is greater. So we want to be there to be that resource for you, because we know earlier in your career that can be very busy. Things are very busy and can be complicated. So just understanding what sources are available and what you have at your disposal here on campus. We did hold our first MedTech Symposium in May of 2022. In the last 3 years, great turnout. We're actually going to hold a couple events this fall. Proto Studios, which I'll talk about here in just a minute, our prototyping company on campus, they're holding 2 events this fall to highlight the work that they're doing. So we really are trying to get out there. And in the fall, a lot of our network comes back to Iowa for football games. And so we try to harness them and get them in front of faculty, innovators, and people interested in startups because we have them here on campus and they have that strong tie to Iowa, even though they're out there now with some of their successful startups. So give you an idea of some of the long-term strategic initiatives that we have as the Office of Innovation, and then filtering down to UI Ventures. We're here to help create successful companies. That's a big part of our mission, is to help guide faculty innovators to create a successful company. We do want to build that culture of innovation on campus. We have had outside faculty who come to Iowa specifically for the innovation. John shared a story with me that he had a physician who was interviewing for a position on campus who wanted to talk to him specifically because this physician wanted to know how he could get his ideas commercialized. So we're trying to create that concept. We also want to strengthen the Iowa-centric startup ecosystem here on campus. My office is actually over in Merge, which is a co-working space on the Ped Mall. And there is all sorts of faculty, or all sorts of startup companies here in Merge at any given time. And so when you hear the discussions and the collaboration coming, I just had the director of ed tech come into my office this morning and introduce me to a new gentleman that we might have some ability to collaborate. So we want to enhance that network here specifically in Iowa City. And then ultimately it's about generating wins for UI technology. There's a lot of, I think, as Marie mentioned it the other day, inventory sitting out there in IP and technology that we want to help try to get some wins and get that out into the real world and outside of the shelves of that inventory. A little bit about the Iowa Made program, just checking the time here. Iowa Made is a small scale manufacturing and production company here on campus that is ran by our medical student or our engineering students. This is an idea of not only to train them, so they understand that medical device space, it's FDA compliant. We sell some products out of here. In fact, those of you who might have been introduced to the face shields on campus during COVID, many of those were made right here out of the MADE program, where we made some 34,000 face shields over the course of that time. We, in the dental space, created a product called the Educational Caries Teeth, but these are what the students use to actually practice some of their technique in the lab. We're actually working, trying to get with the Board of Dentistry to make this part of their boards section for testing because it's much more accurate. Those are printed right here at Proto Studios on campus. We've expanded our MADE team of students because, again, it's an opportunity for them to learn and understand the space. And then ultimately we brought in, as I mentioned, John Casco, a sales engineer. We hired a sales engineering student. We want to start increasing the sales of the products we have in our pipeline so that we can move this. So again, small scale manufacturing, not really a place maybe so much for a startup company, but it allows us to get those products to market. Here's some ideas of what we have as we get into these are some forceps grips. Ophthalmology uses the spatula that we're really pushing right now to get out on the market. Here's the Educational Caries Teeth over here under the marketed products. You see the face shield. So we've got products in our pipeline. We just need to get them out into people's hands.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
There's a student with a question that's going to pop off here in a minute. So I just wanted to ask it, if you don't mind me interrupting.
Not at all, please do.
She wonders if there's opportunities for PhD students in biomedical science to intern with UI Ventures so they can learn more about the process of it.
That's a great question. Depending on the scope, we do have internship opportunities. Again, on the probably right now with the PhD students, the better opportunity would be the fellows program that we have that will be renewing next year. I know that doesn't help folks right now, but we don't have any specific PhD related internships. Always happy to talk. Right now, the majority of our internships are around the MADE program. And those are usually undergrad students that we have supporting that. So happy to if you want to reach out to me, we can talk more specifics and maybe some of the areas you're interested in learning about. We can see what opportunities we could provide for sure. Some states that we sold MADE products in, so quite a few states across the country. And then last but not least, our friends over at Proto Studios. And again, if I could see everybody and maybe get a hand raise if you knew that we had a prototyping division on campus. We actually have 2 locations. We have one over here at the Merge building where majority of the 3D printers are. We also have one over at UIHC and they have 3D printers on site there. We employ graphic design folks as well as engineers to take it from concept, napkin sketch all the way up to prototype, usable prototype. And in some cases actually manufacture the product. So the teeth we talked about are manufactured here on site. The face shields were manufactured. We're actually in the process of manufacturing forceps grips for surgical ergonomics. And we're going to be doing those all here through Proto Studios. This does not do it justice. I could have put a dozen slides in here on the work that Proto Studios does, but a little glimpse into some of the things. And a lot of these products are actually made by the students that are employed by Proto Studios. They ask them to basically go in and try to break the machines. So make anything you can think about making, test the machines to its limit. What can it accomplish? And see, these are some of the things that the students have put together and built using the technology of the machines that we have. We also have access to many of the machine shops across campus. We can do injection molding, we can do CNC, we can do metal fabrication. So we have a lot of access to resources when it comes to prototyping for items that new or faculty innovators are working on. And again, our graphic designers can build it all the way from the initial napkin sketch through CAD drawings up through the actual development. So that, I think I got in under time. Any other questions anybody has about the Office of Innovation, Ventures, and the services and resources we can provide? And Megan, thank you for putting my contact in there. Please do reach out to me if you have any questions. Happy to have you come over. Happy to meet in person and talk about some different things. Keep an eye on it if you would. Between the UI Ventures web LinkedIn page and Twitter, we will be pushing out the information around the gap funding. We have, I think, 4 of them coming up this fall. There's a lot of activity around funds being given out for innovative strategies and opportunities. And Megan, I appreciate the time and the platform to share a little bit more about what we're doing over here at the Office of Innovation.
Thank you, Chris. Trainees, if you have any questions, there might be time for questions at the end as well. So if Chris would stop screen sharing, then Mihaela and Sarah, when you are ready, please feel free to get yours up and going, and we look forward to hearing from both of you as well.
Okay. Come on. Can you see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for being here today. Like Megan said, I'm Sarah Sapouchkey. I'm a licensing associate with the University of Iowa Research Foundation, or UIRF. And I also have Mihaela Bojin, who is an associate director here with UIRF. So I'll just jump right into it. I'm just going to give you a really brief overview on UIRF, kind of what we are, what we do here on campus, why we're here. I'll talk very briefly about IP, particularly as it pertains to the University of Iowa. Again, just really brief overview of IP and the different types. And then I want to talk about different career paths, both within tech transfer and then some related careers. So just as an introduction, so you know kind of who you're talking to, I actually started at community college, and then I transferred to the University of Massachusetts. I originally wanted to be an equine vet. I really like horses. I am that horse girl that never grew out of it. I still ride to this day. I then got a bachelor's degree in biochemistry because the vet path did not work out for various reasons, and I fell in love with research. I did my PhD in molecular biology here at the University of Iowa. I graduated in December of 2019. I knew very early on that I didn't want a traditional academic career. I knew that going into grad school, so I began exploring alternative careers really early on. I also did a graduate certificate here on campus for college teaching. But when I was finishing, UIRF had just opened their very first postdoctoral position. So I applied. I wasn't even really sure what tech transfer was. I did a ton of research and tried to figure it out. But I joined as a postdoc, and it was spectacular. I did that for 2 years. And then I joined full-time as a licensing associate in December of 2021. And I'll let Mihaela introduce herself.
Good afternoon. Now it's 12:03. Everyone, I'm Mihaela Bojin. I'm an associate director of the Research Foundation. I guess I can start from the bottom, but I did start on an academic track. That was my thought, that's how my career was going to go. I have an undergraduate degree in chemistry and a PhD in chemistry from Cornell. I did a couple of postdocs, both one in physical organic chemistry and the other one computational organic, bioorganic chemistry. And then I was an assistant professor on tenure track for 3 years. And I thought it's going to be like this, the only problem was I had a very long commute. So life happens. And I decided maybe I should try other stuff. So I passed, and Sarah's going to talk about it a little bit, what is called the patent bar. And I was a registered patent agent in New York City for a few years. And actually, most of our clients were companies that were pharmaceutical companies that were developing cancer treatments. So after doing all sorts of projects in solid state chemistry and organometallic chemistry, then I started to learn about how chemistry can be useful and learning about the utility of some of these compounds, particularly to treat all sorts of diseases. And then in 2013, my husband got a job here at Iowa. He's a faculty here, and there's not a lot going on in Iowa on the IP side. So I figured I should explore a career in tech transfer, which actually involves a lot more work on the business side. So since then, I passed this exam to become a certified licensing professional. I took all sorts of business courses, negotiation agreements, and all that. And I've been with UIRF for 9 years. I'm also quite active in professional organizations. The Licensing Executive Society is one of the leading organizations in our profession. It's a group of business professionals from business development, from companies, universities, consultants, service industry, law firms. I'm on their board of directors, and I'm part of the Midwest Research University Network Board, and another standards development organization. So really the takeaway, and Sarah's going to get to this in the presentation, I kind of, I tried all sorts of careers until now. Who knows what's next? Hopefully I'll stay on the business side, but yeah, this is my background. If anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to interrupt or raise your hand or put them in chat. I'll be watching the chat and Sarah will present. So
Thank you. Okay, so what does URF do? So we're the technology transfer office for the university, and our purpose is really to assist faculty and staff researchers and also students in the transfer of technology from the lab to the marketplace. And so we have kind of a couple main functions. The first is intellectual property or IP management. So we help identify and protect inventions that are developed here on campus. And then we handle licensing. So this really has two parts. We market the technologies to industry, and then we also work with industry to transfer the rights. And this involves negotiating a bunch of different contracts and agreements. And it's a bit more complicated than that, but so our portfolio is quite broad. We have over 600 active technologies, and we get about 100 disclosures per year. On average, we do about 40 deals per year. So tech transfer, I think, is kind of a broad topic. It's a little hard to wrap your mind around at first, but what it really is a formal transfer of rights to help commercialize new discoveries. And so kind of in layman's terms, when it pertains to the university, we typically transfer technology to industry to help commercialize and develop the inventions. And this happens through the disclosure of inventions, patenting when appropriate, and then licensing. And so this quote right here is from an association called AUTUM, Association of University Technology Managers. And a lot of tech transfer professionals are a part of AUTUM, and they hold a lot of professional development, meetings and things like that to really propel your career. So universities kind of do play a big role in the economy, and I think that's not really well appreciated. I like this graphic on the right, even though it goes up to 2017, so it's not exactly up to date. But if you just look at some of the numbers, university tech transfer has supported over 5.9 million jobs, which I think is spectacular. We've had over 13,000 startups formed around university technologies, and over 200 drugs and vaccines have been developed. And so I've put on the left just some of the common names that I thought everyone would recognize that have come out of university. So Google, I don't think that one really needs much of a description. Warfarin, which is a blood thinner. And then from the University of Iowa, we have the CMV promoter, which I thought a lot of people on this talk today might recognize. And so this one was a really big one for the university. It's made a lot of money. It's been licensed to over 120 different companies, I believe. And so it's made a huge impact since it was developed. Our commercialization process, I probably should have made this. So I made this graphic, and I think I should have made it into a circle because it's really a cyclic process. But it starts on campus with research, which is where many of you are right now, I believe. Then hopefully once you develop a technology that you think could be useful or interesting, you'll disclose it to the UIRF. We'll then evaluate it, apply for IP protection if necessary or appropriate. We'll then market the technology, reach out to companies and industry. Hopefully we will then proceed to licensing the tech to industry. And this either will be to an existing company, so maybe like big pharma, or it could be to a faculty startup or even a student startup. This will then proceed to product development, which can take many years. And then hopefully this will reach the market to generate revenue, which can be reinvested in the university and the lab. And then the whole process will start again. So looking at the University of Iowa's tech landscape, and Chris kind of touched on this quite a bit. So a lot of our technologies are different therapeutics or medical devices. So this includes new or improved compositions, biologics. We get a lot of technologies around new formulations, as well as new methods of treatment. For medical devices, we see stuff from all over, all different areas. We also do get a decent amount of diagnostics. We see we've been getting quite a few softwares disclosed lately, and this is both healthcare and non-medical applications. Materials and engineering, we have quite a few techs in there as well. Chris mentioned from the College of Education, and we have been seeing quite a few educational materials coming out. And then a big one that has been creating a lot of buzz in the office is data. So different data sets and databases, they can be quite valuable. So it's good to keep that in mind and not overlook what data you may be collecting. And then we also have a research tools portfolio. This includes things like cell lines, antibodies, different animal models like genetically engineered mice. And that's actually something that I particularly handle in the office, and I'm trying to make that a little more well-known on campus. So don't discount your cell lines and antibodies. You may not think that they are valuable, but they can be quite valuable. Okay, so what is IP? IP is really a creation of the mind. It gives you the right to exclude others from using your creation, and it sort of gives you a temporary monopoly. And then IP really, it can be quite valuable. It can be a corporate asset. Other companies, they can buy and sell IP. You can license it, which is what URF does. I just want to make note that the university, our office, we never sell IP. It always remains, the ownership always remains with UIRF when it is licensed out. And again, why would you bother to protect your IP? It's really to prevent the unrestricted competition and duplication. It gives you that temporary monopoly, and hopefully you can sort of recoup the time and money that you put into developing your invention and make a revenue off of it. So IP ownership at the University of Iowa, this is governed through the IP policy, which states that the university through UIRF takes assignment or ownership of inventions from faculty and researchers, and also in some case students, particularly when there's a significant use of university resources. I'm not going to read these two paragraphs, but they're just examples of when an invention created by a student may or may not be, taken ownership. The UI may or may not take ownership of the invention. So if you want to look into that some more, if you want to know more about the University of Iowa's IP policy, you can just Google it. It pops right up. It's the first thing that pops up. But I do want to point out that ownership may also depend on agreements with other third parties. So this could be other universities. A lot of times faculty and staff collaborate with other universities, but it could also be with companies. So we get quite a few sponsored research agreements or collaboration agreements. And so that can change the ownership, and that's something that UIRF will deal with on a case-by-case basis. I apologize, it's a little blurry, but there's 4 main types of IP. There's trade secrets and trademarks, and then there's copyrights and patents. And UIRF specifically deals with copyrights and patents. The University of Iowa does have specific trademarks, but that our office doesn't handle that. That's particularly important for athletics and branding. So again, we focus on the patents and copyrights. So when we look at the patent, this covers the inventions, like I've mentioned a few times. It really gives you the right to exclude others from making, using, or selling your invention. There's a couple different types of patents. The one that everyone thinks about is called the utility patent that gives you 20 years. There's also design patents, which are 14 years, and then it's not on here, but there's also plant patents, which I think is kind of cool. And that is, I believe it's 20 years as well. And then just going down, these are federally protected. And then the requirements for getting a patent. So the 3 main ones that you want to think about are novelty, usefulness, and non-obvious. And I'm not going to go into these things specifically, but if anyone has any interest and they want to learn more, please feel free to reach out. Mihaela also teaches a class on IP. I'm not sure if you have any upcoming in the spring, but she did last fall.
I'm working on scheduling it.
Okay, so hopefully there'll be classes coming up in the spring that if anyone wants to learn more, please feel free to register for those. We also handle copyrights. So this covers authored works. It gives you the right to reproduce, distribute, and display the work. These are much longer, so it's the author's life plus 70 years. They are federally protected. And then the requirement is that it has to be an original work. I think a huge difference between the copyright and the patent is for patents, it's quite a long application process. It can be difficult to get a patent and it's quite expensive. For copyrights, you get the copyright the moment that you finish creating your work. So the moment you make a painting, it has a copyright. You can register it federally, and that does have specific ramifications. So that's for licensing or if you need to go to court for any reason, but you don't have to, versus the patent where you do need to go through the process. So most of the technologies that are disclosed to URF will require patent protection. Occasionally, we do get some that require copyright protection. These are mostly software, code, and then a lot of the educational materials and training tools that we get are copyrighted. And then some inventions actually don't need patent protection to be successfully commercialized. So a lot of these, when you think about these types of things, this would be research tools that I mentioned, like the cell lines, the antibodies, and animal models. And one of the reasons is that when you're pursuing IP protection, it's really a business decision. You have to think about it and kind of weigh the pros and cons, and that's because it is quite expensive to go through the patent application process, and it's very time consuming. Okay, so I want to just switch gears a little bit. I know that was a very broad kind of quick overview of everything. So again, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out. But I want to touch on careers and tech transfer. Since this is a career development talk, I thought it'd be good. So I want to talk about kind of who works in tech transfer, because it's not just scientists, different degrees and qualifications that you need, what skills are kind of necessary for a successful career, and then how to break into the field. And then I just talk very briefly about related careers. So I like to think of tech transfer as it's got 3 pillars. So we've got the STEM professionals, there's legal professionals, and then business professionals. So a lot of licensing professionals, such as myself or Mihaela, have advanced degrees in some type of STEM background. So like I said, I am molecular biology, Mihaela has degrees in chemistry. Our colleagues have degrees in engineering, zoology, genetics, pharmacology, but also a lot of times, so they'll have an MBA or even a law degree. So Kellen Sensor, who is another associate director, also has an MBA. And then sometimes you'll see patent attorneys employed in tech transfer offices, and they have both the STEM degree, not necessarily an advanced degree. I think you just have to have a bachelor's degree, but then they also have the law degree to go with it. There's a bunch of additional certifications that you can get. when you're in tech transfer. And these are things that you would get to either sort of boost your professional development. There's a lot of requirements, and it really shows that you're committed to the career. And they also give you additional skill sets that are valuable in the field. So the first one that I want to touch on is the registered patent agent. Mihaela mentioned this when she introduced herself. For this, you must pass the patent bar, which I kind of studied for briefly. It's quite brutal. But passing the patent bar and becoming a patent agent gives you the right to draft and prosecute patents in front of the United States Patent and Trademark Office, USPTO. Another common one is Registered Technology Transfer Professional, or RTTP. For this one, you have to have 3 years of professional tech transfer experience, plus there's a couple other additional requirements. And then Certified Licensing Professional, which Mihaela touched on briefly as well. This is also, you need a minimum of 3 years professional tech transfer experience, and then additional requirements. I know you have to pass an exam, I believe, and then there's continued recertification. And Mihaela can touch on that more if anyone's interested. So moving from the lab to the tech transfer office, it was a little daunting when I first made the transition, but a lot of the skills that you develop in the lab, they really are directly applicable to a career in tech transfer. So PhD students, postdocs, medical students all have spectacular time management and interpersonal skills. You kind of have to, along with organization, persistence, and thick skin. So tech transfer is really, it's a people job. You talk to a lot of different people in a lot of different roles and organizations. So you really need to be able to converse with a wide variety of people. And I think graduate degrees and scientific degrees, you end up doing that. So the transition, that makes a transition well. Some of you may be wondering why you even need a scientific background to work in tech transfer. But having that STEM background is really important because you need to be able to discuss with the inventors. They don't expect you necessarily to be an expert in their field, but you need to be able to follow along, learn about the technologies, and they sort of expect you to have a little bit of background. And then it's also important because you need to be able to understand the technology itself. And this is important for running intellectual property searches and market searches. You can run a much more valuable, expansive search if you understand the technology. And then you need to be able to understand the development timelines and what's expected in industry. So how do you break into tech transfer? I think 10 to 15 maybe years ago was a little bit trickier to break into it. I think it was a little bit smaller, but offices are growing and the field is growing. A lot of offices have internships now. Our colleague Hojab Mozaffari, who's also a licensing associate, did an internship during his PhD. There's also volunteer opportunities. A lot of universities are creating postdoctoral positions. URF was one of the first, and that's it's bolded because that's how I got started. I also encourage you, if you're interested in learning more, to find ways to interact with your tech transfer office. A lot of offices, including UIRF, hold informational meetings or classes. I would also encourage you to look for intro positions that not necessarily are stated as licensing associate, but licensing assistant or maybe contract assistant. And then if anyone is really interested in making the transition, a lot of offices are hiring right now. So this might be a good time. Additional career paths that you could think about, product development and business development are two big ones. Consulting, this could be either business or technology evaluation. This could also be product management, product launching. I have a good friend of mine who is in the consulting field. I forget what firm, but a lot of their clients are large pharma and she absolutely loves it. She travels all the time. She makes a lot of money. So that could be an interesting one to get into. There's venture capital firms, entrepreneurial opportunities, perhaps if you're thinking of a startup, and that would be more UI Ventures realm, but I'm sure anyone such as Chris or anyone else from UI Ventures would be happy to talk to you. You could also work for a law firm, either as patent attorney if you go back to law school, or as IP counsel or a patent agent. And then tech transfer offices, which I've touched on a lot. Companies, they don't necessarily have tech transfer offices, but they have sort of their own industrial counterparts. So in and out licensing, and then other university tech transfer offices.
And actually careers in law, if you go back, it's you don't even need to pass if you have especially if you have a PhD, you can work as a scientific advisor or a technical advisor, and you really can still have a job which is pretty well paid as a starting job. Many of them later would pay for you to pass the patent bar and eventually to go through law school. So the only problem is you have 4 brutal years of law school and work and miserable life or no life, but you have a law degree that you didn't have to pay for. But that's another, that's a career that, especially if you're kind of in the medical science, or if you have generally an advanced degree, it's an opportunity that you could have, particularly through larger law firms. This is also career path.
And that's all we have. So if there's any questions, please feel free to ask now, or you can reach out at any point. I know I can't speak for Mihaela, but I would be very happy to meet with anyone at any point and talk further. I know this was kind of a high level introduction to URF and tech transfer in general. So thank you.
Trainees, any questions for any of the 3 of our presenters today? Please feel free to go ahead and ask. Contact information for each of the 3, as well as their units' websites, are in the chat if you want to get more information and or reach out to each of them. All right. In the absence of any questions, we appreciate time and effort for everybody to pull this together, as well as to hop on and learn some more today. Yes, it was recorded. So later this afternoon or tomorrow, I will email it out to each person that was on this, so you can rewatch if you need to. Anything else? Any other last questions? No problem, Jordan. All right. Everybody has a great day, and
Thank you, Megan.
good
Really
rest of the week.
appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thank you.